Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar today on enhanced campaigns. We have a pretty amazing panel with us today that we'll talk about. My name is Jeff Allen, so I'm the Director of Paid Search here at Hannafin Marketing. I'm going to kind of work in a moderator format today and just ask questions to the rest. So lucky for you, you don't have to listen to my nasally voice too much today. We kind of have a power-packed panel. We have Larry Kim, as you guys probably all know very well to this point from WordStream. We have Sam Owen from here at Hannafin Marketing and also PPC Hero. He writes for the blog and has written a couple articles there. Matt Umbro, the infamous Matt Umbro of PPC Chat, has joined us, and the Director of Paid Search at Exclusive Concepts. And Elizabeth Marston, the Director of Search Marketing at Florent. So pretty power-packed panel. Like I said, I'm going to let them do most of the talking today. Feel free to shoot over questions you have as we go through the webinar. You can do it through the chat function. We'll kind of make a running tally of them as we go through and try to address as many of them at the end as possible. And any that we don't get to, we'll get out to you via probably the blog so that we make sure we kind of hit on all the points that you guys want to listen to. So the topic, enhanced campaigns, we're going to talk a little bit about our reactions, some keys to making the switch, some failure points to consider as you're doing it to make sure there aren't any complications there, tips and tricks, additional features, and talk a little bit about what we perceive as the future changes, so how the enhanced campaigns may evolve over the next 3, 6 months, or even a year. You can join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag ECWebinar in your tweets. So that's how you can make sure to engage with us there. And we're just going to jump right into it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and kick the first question to Larry to start. He's kind of had a little bit, as we were talking earlier, maybe worked on more campaigns and accounts in this than anyone, but I would like to hear from Larry first on what his knee-jerk reaction was when he first heard about enhanced campaigns and how it worked.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I was pretty excited about it. I think, you know, the people that I work with, you know, they tend to be perhaps a little bit less sophisticated advertisers, and it's just been such a, you know, really almost impossible to do all the execute all the mobile strategies, and you know, involving so much campaign splitting, and it's a real nightmare. And I thought that this was a pretty elegant solution to the challenge of wanting to create, you know, ads that are not only responsive to the user's searches, but also responsive to the user's context, so time, device, and location. And I think it's much better overall suited for sort of kind of the reality of in terms of the device proliferation world that we're in right now. So I was pretty excited. Yeah.
Makes sense. And how about Matt? What was your kind of initial knee-jerk reaction?
My initial knee-jerk reaction was one of anxiety and stress. You know, I mean, when control's taken away, you know, I think you have those concerns. But as I've gone into enhanced campaigns more and tested some out, you know, I've become a little more level-headed, and some of the features are really great. I know I'll be talking a lot about those, and some of the issues that you know, right now are negatives, you know, such as not being able to segment by tablet and keyword bidding at the campaign level, which I see as the two most negative things about enhanced campaigns. I do think in future iterations of, you know, enhanced campaigns, some of these issues will be taken care of, or at least partially addressed. So, you know, to begin with, a little stressful, but now kind of calming the storm.
I hear you. Anxiety and stress, I think, are probably two keywords that came up for me personally. What about you, Elizabeth?
My initial knee-jerk reaction included a bit of profanity, included by what the, and then I kind of started to read through about 3 or 4 different articles before the gravity of all these changes really started to sink in. I didn't have any kind of warning ahead of time, so none of our Google reps had said anything to us. We didn't kind of have any idea that this was really coming down the pipe. And so it took me a while to just kind of wrap my head around how big of an update this is, because we were a little bit more blindsided.
Gotcha, makes sense. And I guess lastly, I'll kick it to Sam here and get his initial thoughts.
So mine was somewhat of a roller coaster, I guess, because we got the news about a week before from Google of what was going down, and that was dressed up super positive. So when I read that, I was excited, thinking that, you know, this looks great. And then kind of got some into discussing it with a few other people, and then probably aligned a little better with how Matt described his thoughts. You know, the anxiety and the frustration. But I think having looked at it, and I try and stay fairly neutral in these things until I've actually used them, I think having looked at it, that a lot of the changes are helpful. Some of the stuff is really bad still. I mean, I'm not going to dress it up, but I think we need to really work on it a bit more. And as more blog posts get written and kind of more feedback comes out, we'll get the lay of the land and see if it's actually improving things or not. But it's definitely going to make some of my life a lot easier for sure. So I appreciate that. And then the loss of control is still frustrating, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we kind of ran the gamut of emotions from being excited and kind of to Larry's point, you know, working pretty well with his section of the market to anxiety to, sounds like on Elizabeth's side, maybe some adult.
Surprise.
Cool. So we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but now that things have calmed down, general impressions or maybe more specific impressions. So Matt, you kind of mentioned specifically that anxiety and stress were your first knee-jerk reactions. What about what you've seen so far has kind of calmed that down for you?
You know, to Sam's point about some of the features, you know, ad group level site links are something that I've wanted for years, and we finally have them now. I think the thing with extensions overall, though, is that generally they help improve the overall headline click-through rate, and they help take up more search real estate, but the actual extensions themselves aren't getting clicked too much. But I have noticed early on, and I stress that this is early on and only a few days worth of data, but I do see more people clicking on those ad group level site links, including a couple conversions. I do really like that the offer extension is now in every campaign. You know, we had been using that for a while, but it worked okay. Again, it helped overall headline click-through rate, but I think it's a little bit more sophisticated now, and I'm excited to get that on the ad group level. And then the call extensions, just being able to put more custom numbers within those specific ad groups is going to be very helpful. But overall, general impressions are, you know, I'm warming up to it. I agree with Larry in that it will help make management a little bit easier, and in a way, you know, force PPC advertisers to make management a little bit easier by, you know, telling them automatically that you can't block out, you can't create mobile specific campaigns. You know, again, don't like taking away the control, but, you know, I guess for a little bit of sanity's sake, and, you know, when you're managing multiple clients, it does help the management a bit.
Yeah, I agree. It does seem like, especially for those that will have just endless number of campaigns, so really heavily geo-targeted clients, and then when you add that on top of being in mobile and desktop and potentially even having tablet-specific campaigns, it certainly did get a little unruly. So I think that could be an advantage. Elizabeth, you kind of mentioned you went from pretty shock and surprise to just trying to figure it out. So what's kind of your take now that you've gone in there that has you thinking maybe it's not the end of the PPC world as we know it?
Well, I mean, right now it's just a matter of curiosity. So we're, you know, testing out which campaigns do we roll. I do like that we were given the control on when to enable it in which on a per campaign basis over time, that we have till June. This can kind of sink in, kind of give you an idea. And in the end, I kind of look at it and just go, you know, it's not any different than some of the other restrictions and changes that we've been living with for years that I find are kind of silly. I mean, the Google Search Partner Network, the defaults like search and display together, USA and Canada, the default of people searching in and around, that kind of stuff. So it's calmed down. General impression is this could be very good. We'll just kind of there's some stuff that we're just going to have to work around or through or whatever. But overall, it is what it is. you know, I've got a job. And like you were saying earlier, Jeff, job security a little bit too now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that makes sense. So Larry, we had talked earlier, you had certainly sounded like you had launched the most accounts or upgraded the most to enhance campaigns. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing the same thing as Matt is regarding extensions? Most of it's still headline clicks, or are you kind of learning anything unique from those that are live?
So we're figuring it out. Like it's only been a couple weeks, so basically it's all about just setting those mobile bid adjustment factors. You know, consolidating the accounts. We're not like I'm definitely not seeing it's all. It's not a like for like comparison for most of my advertisers because they're basically taking advantage of features that they weren't previously using. Maybe 1 in 25 or 1 in 20 of them were using. So from their perspective, it's just like they just got a whole bunch of new bag of stuff that they've never been able to really understand or comprehend or use before. So I think it's been pretty positive.
Makes sense. And Sam, you've done a few as well. So what have you kind of learned so far?
So I think the best place to start is probably one of your brand campaigns. And the reason for that, at least for me, is because I know that generally my mobile traffic and tablet traffic is still good for brand stuff. And also, if you have a brand where you have lots of different verticals, I normally keep them within the same campaign. So the ad group level site links has been really awesome for that. That's where I first rolled it out. So like vertical 1 and vertical 2, I can have separate site links that are really specific into those products rather than just the same generic 4 links. So that's definitely a great place to start and just an easy place to test it out too, I think.
And Elizabeth, have you kind of learned anything from the initial ones that you've launched?
Just that I did try to do, just for kicks, to do the negative 100% mobile on, just to opt out, to see if I could opt out. But what I did notice is even when you do that, Google does show you in the interface that there is going to be some residual mobile clicks and some costs, and they even show you the estimates of what those costs and clicks might be. So negative 100% doesn't necessarily mean negative 100%.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I was going to say too, to that point of looking in the interface where it breaks out tablet traffic, computer traffic, etc.
Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised that there's no conversion column there and conversion value column there. That I'm sure that will come in a future iteration, but that not being there is a problem.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on to the next question, Larry or anyone else have anything they want to add about just kind of initial what they've seen in accounts that have been pushed live? Okay, we'll move on then. So one thing we talk a lot about here at Hannafin PPC Hero a lot is kind of the failure points. So we try to reduce failure points when launching new campaigns or building out things. And so as far as migration goes, I just kind of want to get your guys' take on what do you think the major failure points would be. So they're kind of big opportunities, big risks that people should look out for, that if they avoid those, they'll generally be kind of in good standing. So why don't I go ahead and start with Larry. Larry, do you have any kind of thoughts on what the biggest things to watch out for is launching these in-house campaigns?
So the migration guide covers like 7 or 8, consolidation, like campaign consolidation, strategies, and I think the biggest risk is there when you're, perhaps you've broken something up into like 50 campaigns, one for every state or something, and you're trying to consolidate this back into one. Like there's just, a lot of copying and pasting and a risk for errors, like human errors. Like as I mentioned earlier, the clients that I work with weren't necessarily the ones that were splitting things into 50 different ways or 100 different ways. So, from their vantage point, the migration was pretty painless and actually didn't take long at all.
Okay. That makes sense. Matt, and I'll ask this to Elizabeth too, you both are director level, so obviously you probably have some of your own accounts to keep an eye on, but also you're kind of responsible for the agency as a whole and the migration there, which sometimes can add an extra level of stress. So I guess what you guys see as the major failure points, and potentially if you could talk a little bit about how, Larry mentioned the human error part, which I think is really important, so how you're planning on preventing or at least mitigating the human error aspect of the migration. So let's go ahead and have Matt, if you can answer first, and then we'll move to Elizabeth.
Sure. So I think education is the most important factor, and like the hundreds of blog posts out there now on enhanced campaigns, and like the webinar that's going on today, and the enhanced campaign webinars that Google's providing, it's just been a matter of showing the team what needs to be done and helping them to understand why these things are being done. One caveat is AdWords Editor. I think that will help some of this migration, and we've yet to see what the improvements to Editor will be. But supposedly by the end of February, we'll be able to get that new version. I think it's also going to be a matter of just, very detail-oriented work. I mean, even stuff like, what are your bids going to be for mobile now versus what they were, looking at the historical data and just, going through each campaign with a fine-tooth comb and making sure all the settings are correct, the locations are correct, and so forth. And additionally, that, if you are combining campaigns that were each individually targeting desktops and mobile, to make sure that you have mobile-specific ads within your new enhanced campaign that are targeted specifically for mobile. So it's going to be, there will be some work involved, but I think mostly more than anything, it's just going to be a matter of, just again going through the fine-tooth comb and making sure everything is set to where it needs to be.
Makes sense. And Elizabeth, your thoughts?
So first things that happened for us on our end was I had to craft a statement, because for us, our client level is somewhere around the medium to enterprise level size businesses, and these folks don't necessarily always understand how PPC works, let alone this enhanced campaign thing. And Google had taken it upon themselves to call many of our clients and offer to help them explain this and do this and that. And so before we had a chance on a lot of our clients to get to them and explain what is going on and what that button is, and please don't touch that button, that's why you have us, kind of thing. So that was one of our first hurdles to the time management kind of issue of adapting this, is like what Matt was talking about as far as education goes, because we not only had to educate ourselves, we had to educate our clients, we have to educate our account strategists, our SEOs, that kind of thing, because we're a full service agency. And then when it comes to actual implementation, we now have to go through on a per client basis, and we'll have kind of like a basic checklist in the background to make sure that each one, as you migrate, you looked at bids for this, you looked at locations for that, you looked at site links for this, that kind of thing, and kind of do a little bit of a calendar, kind of roll that out either gradually depending on the client, or maybe we're going to do it all at once. It just, like I said, it depends entirely on the client. We have some clients that are huge on tablet, and this is going to really impact them negatively, and then we have some clients that they won't feel a thing. And it is literally going to be on a per client basis, week over week, client call after client call. I can't wait for the AdWords Editor stuff to roll out. We're waiting on that more than anything else.
Yeah, I know Sam's been chomping at the bit for that one. I'm gonna ask Sam the same question, but just for the listeners, we've had a few people ask questions pertaining kind of to the basics. So it sounds like we have a few people in here who maybe don't quite understand what enhanced campaigns is. So the next question after Sam answers this one, I'll have someone, probably Elizabeth, since she said she had to craft a statement for her agency, just kind of maybe nail the finer points. But first, so just hang tight. We'll get to that, and I'll just have Sam answer this question while we're on the topic.
Cool. So for me, one of the biggest issues with the migration as an account manager is just making sure that the account performance stays steady through the process. So really, like, we have a lot of mature accounts that I'm working on, and they kind of maintain a steady level of performance, and we really don't want to jack up the results month over month. And the thing I'm worried about is bringing in tablet, mobile, and desktop together, and then the budget's not being allocated correctly. So we might really spike our mobile spend, and that's going to impact what we see in terms of sales month on month. So it could be something that might be pretty easy to fix, but I'm not looking forward to that day or two transition when the budgets kind of change up and the mix of clicks that go mobile, tablet, and desktop happen, and really, before I can make bid changes and have a couple of weeks of data to know what's going on. That's my main concern, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing that probably keeps me up at night the most isn't the overall change. It's just those first couple days on a couple key accounts that will probably be the most alarming. So question 5 is really about the tips and tricks about the migration process. But Elizabeth, if you could be so kind just to give us the 30,000 foot view of what enhanced campaigns are and what the major changes are, that'd be great.
Sure, and I pulled up what I actually wrote up for our account strategist to tell clients. I just called it, language you can use for clients on enhanced campaigns, and it was Google AdWords is rolling out a major update to all accounts starting gradually in February with full adoption expected by June of this year. The update is called Enhanced Campaigns, and it affects the structure of any account running separate mobile, tablet, and desktop campaigns segmentation in particular. Each account will be able to incorporate this change as the option appears in the AdWords interface, and it will be up to your PPC strategist, insert name here, to advise best on timing for implementation and make the necessary required changes. Please do not do the upgrade yourselves or let anyone else from Google or anyone like your cousin do it, as it may upset your CPCs, your quality score, cause keyword duplication, unnecessary spend, or campaign duplication. We will be working to incorporate these new features as the option becomes available in your account, and we will be adding it as a discussion point to your reports and call notes to keep you advised of your progress. So it's just kind of, Google is doing this thing. You guys just kind of be aware, this is what's happening. We're going to explain it in the next phone call. You may or may not be fundamentally have your account change, or you may or may not feel anything at all, like we were talking about earlier.
Hey Jeff, can I just that's a great overview. Could I just talk briefly about this in terms of like what my impressions of what are enhanced campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's a re-envisioning of AdWords that takes into consideration user context. So user context has to do with the conditions from where the search occurred. Where was the person? What time was it? And what device was he or she using? And so I think what Google is saying is that it's the user context that motivates people's needs and their actions. And so it's not that AdWords didn't have geo-targeting capabilities or location targeting, like time of day or device targeting before, but it was just very hard. And so they've kind of figured out that those 3 knobs, like the location, time, and device, seems to be like the main drivers of user activity and actions. And so they're trying to make that very easy for advertisers to react to, and in terms of providing smarter ads and smarter bidding options that are, or maybe my colleagues would not call them smarter, but but just easier, bidding options and campaign structure. So.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Appreciate that. Matt, do you have anything as far as maybe any features that weren't mentioned that you think people need to be aware of?
Not specifically features, but I did want to just reference Elizabeth's statement there, because I think that's a very good point. You have some clients that do care more about AdWords and want to know what's happening, and you have others that just expect you to take care of everything. It's definitely important that they do know what's going on, and at least you provide some sort of statement like Elizabeth did for them. So that that's very beneficial there. I think also it's a matter of just making sure your clients know that they can count on you to understand these needs, and as PPC specialists, we continue to stay on top of what's going on in the ever-changing PPC world. And I think more so than the actual update, the fact that we're able to keep them updated of what's going on is one of the key reasons they trust us to manage their PPC accounts.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was a very well written statement by Elizabeth, and all pretty good explanations of it. And you're right, communication is kind of the key piece. And I think Larry's onto something where he mentions this is I forget the exact verbiage, but kind of it's more than just a change to how campaigns work. It's kind of a fundamental shift in the way AdWords works in terms of considering, and I think you put it pretty well, the location, the time, and the device that people are using, which is true. We're in a much different world than we lived in 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it seems like we're kind of realigning that. So that makes sense. So kind of on to question 5, tips and tricks. So get a little tactical here. I'm going to kick it to Sam first, ask him if he's kind of outside of getting AdWords Editor and to make things a little bit quicker, if he has any tips and tricks for kind of the immediate future for transitioning things.
It's a tricky one because I haven't, editor's going to be the key for me, and sorry to hop on about it. When we get that, that's going to be the one place I can really see what the easy and quick things we can do are. I think in terms of tips, if you can set all your geo targets up, so for people listening from the US, like state by state, you can work down your CPA list and find which states work best for you. If you can really set that up strong from the start, I think that's going to be really beneficial. That's probably my favorite thing about enhanced campaigns, is being able to, put it up in California and down in Florida, or depending on where you are. So make sure you kind of run that report before you get started and set everything up as you want to go, because that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. For a lot of our clients, that's kind of the initial reaction. There were certainly some that maybe conversion rate was 5 or 10% higher in California than it was in, say, Texas. And sometimes it made sense to break out those campaigns and treat them differently, but other times it would just become too complicated. Or when you do that, as we all know, it wouldn't necessarily function right. So all of a sudden the conversion rate goes down, or all those different factors. And so I think for a lot of the ones I've seen, that's kind of been the biggest immediate impact is, oh, this conversion rate is 10% higher. Well, now I can bid 10% higher on that keyword and drive a higher volume. What about you, Matt? Have you kind of have any immediate tricks and tips to give people?
I think other than really the new extensions, and what I've been doing too is when I have campaigns targeted internationally versus just the U.S. and Canada, so far I've still kept those campaigns segmented, but combined the mobile and desktop. In other words, instead of having 4 individual campaigns where 2 are targeted to mobile and 2 are targeted to computers, with each targeting different locations, I've combined the U.S. campaigns and the international campaigns. So I've cut in half the number of campaigns, but still had somewhat of segmentation, moving forward. And as far as I understand, we can still do that with enhanced campaigns, where we have campaigns by different location and can keep those running. I think when you have the only thing that really scares me about combining international campaigns is the fact that sure, you can adjust the bids, but the messaging for each country is going to be different. So I've essentially kept campaigns segmented where I can, but also experimented with bringing them together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the messaging is kind of the interesting point there. It's kind of pitched as you can consolidate, but a lot of times the benefit of breaking out, again, maybe California from Texas, is that you can use language about California in a California campaign and increase click-through rates and conversion rates there. So certainly makes sense that there's going to be some cases, and I think as we've talked about budget allocation too, some cases where there may be a region that's just so much better for you that you want to make sure it still maintains its own campaign budget versus being lumped with everything else. Elizabeth, do you have any kind of tricks or tips so far on what you think people should be doing?
The best thing that I found to start with was PPC Hero, and I was trying to find it on the site, wrote a post in the last couple of weeks that walked through screenshot by screenshot of doing an enhanced campaign, of what it looks like, to what happens when you click the button, what shows up, what to do from there. That was one of the best tools that I've found so far. It's just, it makes it a whole lot less scary, because you can see the pictures, you know what's going to happen, you've got yourself some tips and tricks there, and honestly that was probably the best adoption tip that I can give for right now.
No, well, appreciate the nod. I think the kind of key for us is there's a lot of anxiety behind what happens when I click this one thing.
Exactly.
So that makes sense. And I know, Larry, you mentioned kind of from your perspective, hasn't so much been scary, or hasn't so much been a different strategy since a lot of the advertisers you've been dealing with weren't broken out. Have you found any kind of cool trick or tip so far that for those that maybe aren't, that this isn't a concern from it's so different to them, but that is something cool you found that they may be able to, or may want to implement right away because you've got good results with it, or whatnot?
Yeah, of course. When we're talking about like migration processes and migration tips, I guess you can come at it two ways. One is like, I'm worried I'm going to screw things up. I'm worried about bad results. You know, I'm just trying to prevent risk, like reduce risk. And so for that, the tip has to do with like, you know, don't migrate every campaign all at once. Pick maybe your second biggest campaign or third biggest one, and then get that working. You know, you have 4 or 5 months to do it. You know, get the you know, the right ads and all the new, you know, the bid adjustment factors all figured out, and then replicate that success or those results when you're pleased with it onto your other campaigns. You know, but the flip side of that is that you know, it has to do with taking advantage of all this new stuff, right? Like this migration process is like, you know, for a lot of advertisers, including I believe sophisticated advertisers, there's a lot of upgrades here that you can be taking advantage of. It's not just a matter of like risk reduction or whatever. Take for example WordStream, like my business WordStream. We spend a decent amount of money on paid search. It's something like $25,000 a month or something, if you can believe that. And so basically, you know, I don't think that we're dummies. Like we have a decent campaign, but when we were upgrading it, we added a bunch of more. We added a bunch more countries to our geo-targeting. Why? Because you know, we sell software and we sell it to like you know, English language countries like Canada, U.S., Australia, but we get sales from like other places like Israel and South Africa and you know, New Zealand, etc. But we just never bothered to break out campaigns for those specific you know, English-speaking markets, because it was just kind of, we figured, well, we got most of it. But now with just like in 1 second, I can like, you know, add new countries to my targeting that I wouldn't have otherwise been targeting, and just set like a lower bid multiplication factor. Like I'm going to bid minus 90% for these clicks. So like they're still worth something to me. Maybe not the same as one from my core markets here in Canada or U.S. But that's a great tip to look at your campaigns and see like, were there things that maybe you weren't taking advantage of that would be helpful now that it's like so much easier to do. Another example has to do with like the mobile strategy. So like, you know, I don't consider my business to be a mobile business, but nevertheless, I can now really easily implement a mobile strategy. So what we did was we added ad scheduling to the ads, so that the click-to-call thing runs between 9 to 5 when my call center is open, and then that we set the bid adjustments to be slightly lower when the office is closed, and push to the contact us form rather than the click-to-call you know, ad. You know, again. It just took a few seconds to do this in the new section, and we weren't taking advantage of that previously. You know, so it's just the tip has to do with not just like, so of course there's risk reduction, but also it's about you know, fully taking advantage of user context and thinking about like the different, you know, location, time, and device, and in terms of like what's valuable for you, and reflecting that in your bid strategy, and reflecting that in your ad creative strategy.
Yeah,
Larry,
I think you touched on something that was kind of one of my initial reactions was, I've talked to our team, and I think I've written a few posts about over-optimization. So being too refined in our approach. So kind of like you're talking about, not necessarily exploring other countries because it might not work, or because of the time it was a different strategy for you. So I do think there's some kind of a lot of opportunity for taking a look at the picture of a whole, looking at your marketing, your PPC marketing kind of from a bigger picture, and looking at the success from there, and probably being a little more willing to try out things that maybe you've been harder to do in the past or scarier to do in the past or something like that. So I think that that's a very fair point. So we'll move on to the next question, which is really kind of a core driver of what they're doing. And I'll start with Elizabeth. So do you think that the move to enhance campaigns will actually increase PPC expenditure, people actually investing in mobile landing pages or responsive site development and everything like that? Or do you think a lot of the people who had already been staying out of mobile are just going to bid down 100% and more or less opt out of it?
I think initially there's going to be some folks that just go ahead and put in that negative 100% because they don't want to deal with it right now, or they know that their site is kind of crap. I know that Google's been pushing, for example, we also have I belong to the Google Engage agencies, and last December I received an email about a partnership with this company called Wix, which does full-size free websites, which is complete with a mobile aspect to it. So we do know that the resources are being provided to get people to be, more mobile friendly, to have more mobile sites, and yes, we should do that, but I do think there's going to be some folks that say, okay, let's go for it, and they're going to say, okay, now we really got to get our stuff together. We got to get our mobile site up and running, or at the very least something that kind of gives users some mobile experience. And then there's going to be some of us that just go, you know what, I don't have time to deal with this right now, and they're just going to negative 100% it out.
Makes sense. And what about you, Sam? What are your thoughts?
See, I wrote a we were discussing this earlier. I wrote an article back in October about Google's earnings report from the last quarter of last year, and how kind of mobile CPCs were hitting them. So I think this is, pretty much my gut reaction is, although Larry will say this is a really big good move for Google, I think this is really a financial move from Google. I think they know that they need the CPCs in mobile and they need people to spend more money there. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think they're forcing us to do it now because they think if they roll it out, if they get a lot more people investing more in mobile, building better mobile sites, people will start to use their phones more to buy stuff. I know, generally, I will never buy anything on my phone just because the shopping experience is still, outside of maybe Amazon, not that fantastic for me. But if people are being kind of forced or coerced a little bit into spending more on mobile, they're going to invest more with mobile CRO companies, mobile web designers, and it should, hopefully really improve, the user experience out there on a phone, on a tablet. So that in the back of my mind, it's going to be good. I think it will help, but I think it'll be a little slow as well, and you'll probably have frustrations with CPAs worse to start with, and people kind of, spending a lot of money. And again, it will be the mix between experienced advertisers who are, like big agencies, or people who are, really strong in-house PPC advertisers who know what to do, and then some other people just kind of be auto-opted in and kind of spend money and see things get a little worse to start. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting for sure. I think we're just wildly speculating at this point. But
and Larry, you might have a really different take on this. So you had a lot of advertisers who didn't really treat mobile different at all. Do you think that they may be more likely to spend less in mobile now? So do you think that they'll actually bid down now that it's a little easier to do so and a little more transparency, and that it may, for people who were just doing both together, do you think it will actually lower that expenditure?
Look, at the end of the day here, the increase or decrease in our clients' spending on mobile will have to do with the return on investment of that spend. If they're able to make that spend profitably, of course they'll want to spend it. If they aren't able to make that profitable, why would they pour more into mobile? And so, for my view, I think for basically all of the advertisers that I deal with, they are far more likely to see positive ROI, given that that it's so much easier to take into consideration, a mobile strategy that factors in, user context, like location, time, device, like, and powerful reporting, like all this new stuff. From my vantage point, is that they'll be far more likely to be able to optimize and actually get ROI from their mobile search spend than previously. And so if that's the case, then I would expect naturally, like, the expenditure to increase. Now, if we really think that this is going to ruin all your accounts and that all the ROI is going to go away, well then yes, I would expect the mobile spend to go down. But I don't think that's the case here.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll jump on to the last question, and then we'll hit a couple of the questions from the audience. We got some good ones in here. So Matt, we'll kick it to you first. What other features do you think are really coming down, so maybe not released yet, but that you see the new structure allowing us to be able to do it, that you're kind of excited about?
I do like how multi-device attribution, it will supposedly be coming in the next couple of months. I'm not sure exactly how that will work, but that's an exciting feature to know that's coming, especially because of what Google has done to the control of how we split out mobile and so forth. Just want to say one thing about the last question, though, Jeff. I don't think I don't think enhanced campaigns will necessarily be the sway for advertisers one way or the other to get a mobile site or a more responsive site, because I think the mobile train, has been going for years now, and if they haven't jumped on the boat by now, then I think, I don't think this is going to push them over. But I will say, though, that even if you don't have a mobile optimized site, it's not always a bad thing to run mobile ads that are strictly utilizing the call extension and where the call to action is to give you a call, because especially for smaller businesses and even bigger businesses who haven't been segmenting mobile anyway, I think it's fine to get that exposure on mobile devices, hoping for a few calls. And I think the risk reward, sure, someone can click to your site and see not have a great experience, and there's the case that they might not want to come back, but I think the ability to get your ad within the space there and at least get the opportunity for them to call you, again, especially if you're a brick or mortar store or you're a restaurant or so forth, is very valuable, even if you don't have a mobile site.
Yep, that's a fair point. Certainly, the click to call, I think, is a good option for a lot of companies now, and sometimes mobile sites. I've certainly seen it where desktop sites convert better than the mobile version of the site. So that's another fun thing that we can test. What about you, Elizabeth? Do you kind of have any features that you're hoping they're going to create, or that you are already excited about that maybe you haven't quite fully launched yet?
I just started playing with some of the locations. We have a super hyper-local client, kind of, but we found that just targeting like the city of Seattle isn't big enough. So we're doing kind of the DMA for Seattle Tacoma, which is pretty big, but then I can bid down Tacoma and I can bid up the east side. Basically, layering geo-targets is pretty awesome. So when you have those hyper-local clients like that, so what I'm seeing so far is that has been the most fun new feature that's got me excited about enhanced campaigns.
Thank you. And what about you, Sam?
I think for me it's doing kind of cleverer things with the enhanced site links. I'd quite like with the mobile preferred ones to set it up so I can give people the option almost to pick the desktop or the mobile site using my site links straight from the ad. I think that would be a cool option. I'm sure we can try it right now, but kind of getting this to come through gave me that idea, and I'm kind of interested to try it. And then the other thing that I'm excited about is the just making sure, like Larry referred to earlier, our call extensions, being able to turn them off when the call center goes off. That should really help as well with mobile, because at the moment we're just running 24/7.
Yep, absolutely. Larry, did you have anything you wanted to throw in there?
Well, sure. I'm like super excited for the future of AdWords, and I think that, these enhanced campaigns are, a much better foundation, in my opinion, than the campaign structure that we had before. I'm more excited for the future features that I know are coming out. Like I know that they're planning a lot of awesome things to simplify, display network targeting. I know they're working on some awesome stuff around conversion tracking across devices in our multi-device connected world. I know that they're working on awesome stuff for new types of ad templates and new types of like for example, like this coupon extension that helps you track stuff that happens like online, like in terms of how does that impact your store traffic, like in-store stuff. Like I think this is a really bold reimagination of a lot of the kind of the structures in AdWords, and that this lays the groundwork for a lot of exciting new things.
Wow. Hey, Larry, did you just violate like 6 NDAs, or are we cool?
No. It's if you look hard enough, you can find.
I know. I'm just teasing. And actually, I just did a post last December where I kind of predicted, what would be cool to come out, and coupon extensions was one of them. I was thinking with the rollout of universal analytics, how cool would that be?
Look, guys, these guys, like at Google, they build out new stuff every 2 weeks. You know that, right? And this is just version 1. And yes, there's a bright future here. Like there's really great stuff coming. Like I know it. It's gonna be awesome. I think it is awesome, and I don't know why I'm so defensive about this thing.
Well, I just think it's a matter of who the advertisers are. I mean, I think Larry, you're working with a lot of small businesses that some have brick and mortar stores. I know, exclusively work with a lot of online retailers who, don't necessarily have brick and mortar stores, and, we're impacting how this will affect them. And, as we've talked about on the webinar, there are a lot of great features of enhanced campaigns, but there are also a few that, make us question how it'll affect our clients individually. And I think really that's kind of the outreach of the PPC community, is that we all have specific clients, and enhanced campaigns are going to affect them different ways, and we just have to see how that will play out.
Of course.
Absolutely. Well, we just kind of talked about that, and we're kind of running out of time. I want to make sure we get to some of the questions here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just read a few. So one, and let's go ahead and have Elizabeth answer this question. So it says, for someone who is about to start geo-targeting campaigns based on 300 metros, maybe targeting each of the states differently as well, with no history on conversion rate to this point, do you recommend they just take the leap right now to enhance campaigns, or do you recommend they launch the old way and get some data and then migrate?
I would say first and foremost, you should probably wait for the AdWords editor to come up, because if it's that big, you just save yourself the time, and then wait for that to come out. Start doing your research before you start kind of migrating those over. So like the guys all said earlier on the panel, start with 1 or 2 campaigns or 1 or 2 geos at the top, and kind of see how that feels and how that looks and what's happening as far as that impact goes. And then eventually you're just gonna have to kind of rip the Band-Aid off, as far as, because you don't want to wait till June.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And Elizabeth, I think you mentioned, I think it was you that talked about you had bid down 100% on mobile, but you still saw some expected kind of cost associated with mobile and everything like that. So there was a question about that. Someone just asked if you could kind of shed a little more light on that.
Sure. So all I did, just to see what would happen when I migrated one of the campaigns, was it gives you the option under the mobile bid, what to put it at. So I put it at the -100. Now in the couple of the columns next to that, it'll give you predicted clicks and predicted costs. Now you would expect at a -100% it would say 0 and 0, but it didn't. It actually had about 4 clicks and an expected cost of about $5. And Matt was talking about that as well, I think, which was that he's seeing the same thing. So even though you could go down to a negative 100%, you come back later, you can view by device metrics. You can't see conversions, but you will see clicks in there. They just kind of get through, I guess.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. So Sam, I'm going to kick this one to you. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but do the new enhanced campaigns, in your opinion, eliminate geo-segmenting, or do you still think there'll be times when you run different states in different campaigns or different countries or whatever it be?
I think for countries, there's a good chance I'll still be geo-segmenting different campaigns out. So I can't remember who mentioned it before, but specifically, it could be a separate landing page even. It could be I'm selling a different product. There might be different taxes or shipping rates or whatever. So I might want to send someone to a local site. And also just it could be different keywords that work. UK market, US market's pretty different. So I might want to be separating those out. But state-wise, I think unless it's a very state-specific product, I'll probably start at least by maintaining all of the US states together and then adjusting up and down based on what I see conversion rate wise. But I know for sure, like we've done some work with one of my clients where it's like car insurance stuff and ads that specifically say California car insurance have performed better. So it could be one still where we're going to keep it separated out.
That makes sense. All right. Well, I want to kind of wrap up here and kind of keep to the time limits we said. So I guess we can probably just kick it to each person and give maybe their final 1 or 2 sentence pitch for using enhanced campaigns and all that. So we'll go in. Matt, why don't you kind of give your summary?
Sure. So quick pitch. Enhanced campaigns are exciting. Still a lot to learn. Looking forward to the future iterations, but nonetheless, I think this is a very interesting move in what AdWords is doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Perfect. And Sam?
I thought I'd just echo what a couple of people on Twitter are saying that we might not have mentioned is somewhat the frustration still with not being able to have mobile-only campaigns. So some people sell some stuff that really is just entirely mobile specific. So I would like that functionality. But I think I'm going to be really excited about these changes once we give Google enough time to listen to the community and implement them, and just kind of pray that they do.
Perfect. And Elizabeth?
It's going to be okay. Everybody, it's going to be okay. PPC marketers are control freaks. Yes. So
no
we're
way.
we're just gonna have to get through it and just kind of roll with it. It's going to be okay. We got lots of time.
Perfect. And we'll give Larry the final word on it.
I think it's going to be great. Like, not just okay. I've been pretty enthusiastic about this from the get-go, but ultimately it's this concept of user context. I just want to make sure everyone understands user context. It's the most important thing in terms of the what drives what the user searches for and what they do after they search for stuff. It's where they're searching for, from what time, and on what device. And this is a really powerful concept. It's that they're doing here, and it's easier than ever to reflect back this user context in terms of intent, in terms of the bid strategy that you're employing, as well as the ad copy strategy that you're employing. So I think it's very exciting, and look for great new things in the near future.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate, first of all, the panelists' time, Sam, Elizabeth, Matt, and Larry. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. We had a couple hundred people listening in today, so we should certainly appreciate their time. If you want to keep the conversation going, the Twitter stream's still pretty active right now. So the EC webinar is the hashtag for that. And so you can jump on there. I'm sure some of the people in here will be on there after this.